tape around his.
Hello, welcome back to Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kev. This is your Week 10 review. How you doing today, Kevin?
Doing good. Feeling good. Ready for another pod.
A little bit of a setting change for you today, I see.
I am not in the living room this week. Jake's out there, so he's watching basketball, and I got booted to the room. But the content must continue.
Content and the pod must go on. We'll just hop right in here. Scoreboard, Week 10. For some reason, I'm not the number one matchup this week. Don't know what happened. It's the way the cookie crumbled. But let's dive in. Netflix and Hill gets the close, ever so close victory against Thomas the Tutu Train by 0.96 points in total. Eli moves up to 7-3. Noah drops down to 5-5. And it came down to Davante Adams. Everybody knew the situation. We were all watching. I mean, if you look at Eli's roster, he had some guys put up good points. Brock Purdy almost 30. Jahmyr Gibbs 26. Gus Edwards a little bit underperformed, but his receivers were pretty average. Christian Watson obviously still dealing with some sort of injury, or Jordan Love's just not that great over there in Green Bay. But on Noah's team, Sam Howell continues to impress. Another 30-point game. Christian McCaffrey gets his 20 points exactly projected. Struggling a bit with Chuba Hubbard, only putting up 5.9. However, Brian Robinson, a strong running back too, at 27 points. And like I said, it came down to Davante Adams. That was it. He needed to catch one more pass. He had 14.6 points at some point in the second quarter, and didn't catch a pass for the last 36 minutes of football. Crazy, unfortunate. What do you got to say?
Really solid week for both these guys, honestly. This is just a really bad break for Noah, I think. Eli definitely put up a solid week, but he was down Tyreek. So he definitely had a chance to come in here and win this game, especially with Sam Howell and Brian Robinson combining for almost 60 points. But Gerald Everett leaves the game with an injury. He drops a donut. That hurts. And then Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if you saw at the end of the 49ers game, they were doing everything they could to get him in the end zone, and he didn't get in.
Yeah,
So it's like if he gets in, he wins the game. Gerald Everett doesn't get hurt, he wins. Devontae Adams catches another pass, he wins.
he
Uh,
starts anybody over a tight end in the flex, he wins.
Yeah, that it's unfortunate for Noah here, especially with Eli being down. Tyreek couldn't take advantage. Um, Noah had a lot of guys out actually, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is unfortunate for Noah here. He's gonna fall to 5-5, and Eli is now sitting alone, third on the standings. At what's he 7-3?
7-3. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's looking bright. I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, but he's in solo third place. And
absolutely. I'll take this one. CD's nuts versus taking for Caleb. Not much really to cover here. This was a blowout, 179 to 83. Henry moves to 8-2, and Sam falls to 0-10. Really, really, really strong week from Henry here. This has got to be one of the highest scoring games of this season. I don't know for certain. I know it's not the all time, but definitely one of the higher ones this season. I think Wyatt had one that might have topped this, but really incredible week from the Chargers stack that he's got. Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen combining for a whopping total of 74 points. It's absolutely absurd. Really, the only two downsides were K-Dot and Saquon Barkley. Saquon only putting up 7 points and K-Dot putting up 3. Everyone else drops just so many points, especially his receivers combining for 80 points. So really, really strong game for Henry here. I'm a little bit worried for Saquon, though. This game, I know it's against Dallas, kind of a tough matchup anyways, but the Giants offense really is horrible. He's going to get so many touches, and he's the only good player on the team, but they're just so bad, and you got to wonder what his upside is going forward. And then for Sam, I mean, 83 points, nothing really to write home about from anyone on the squad. Bijan finally kind of got going, but he just traded him today anyways. So another sad week for Sam as he gets absolutely spanked around, and the trend just continues.
Yeah, I there's not much else to say. Sam did what he could. I mean, he should have made a move for a quarterback sooner, in my opinion, rather than riding out with Desmond Ridder for so long, or pick up any of the tight ends on waivers that turned out to be better than Kyle Pitts. Um, Kyle Pitts
Yeah,
is currently tight end 17,
there
and
was plenty of rookies that he could have gotten along the
yeah,
way. That
like
that
I mean, K Dotton right here. I had him for a while. Henry had him when he put up 24 points. Henry's team just looks super strong. I mean, you've got Keenan Allen, CD Lamb, and Jamar Chase, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 5, and wide receiver 6, all on the same team. It's pretty absurd. He's definitely got a glut of receivers. And he's struggling a bit at running back with Damian Pierce, being injured, kind of having his job taken. Jerome Ford not being all that talented by himself. And then Saquon just being on one of the worst teams. But he's scoring points where it counts, and he moves up to first place, tied with Al. But Henry takes the tiebreaker with the points for. And moving into our third matchup of the week, we have Tower of London, who gets a dub over Wyatt. Scary Terry's big toe falls to 5-5, and Bennett Tower of London moves up to 5-5 with the dub. 22-point margin in the end. It was projected actually 10 points in the other direction for Wyatt. And things just didn't play out the way he needed them to. Tony Pollard, 5 points. Evan Ingram, 5 points. I mean, Gabe Davis, 9 points, which is, I guess, a mid game for him. But we saw what he did the week before. So DJ Moore is continually returning to earth, and Wyatt's team is starting to falter a little bit. He did make a trade, but it's interesting.
yeah, I think the DJ Moore thing should get better. Hopefully, with Justin Fields coming back. Although who knows really, but I think the big thing here for Bennett was that he was down Kelsey and Mahomes, and still pulls out a very solid week. I mean, Dak dropped 43 points, and that also kind of raises some eyebrows as Dak is an available QB now. You would think Bennett would want to probably move him. I would imagine some people who are struggling at QB would probably want to try and get Dak. He seems like he's
Mhm.
really coming along this season, and that's part of the reason for CD Lamb's success.
Definitely. I
It's
mean, Dak's quarterback 5 sitting on sitting on Bennett's bench most of the time. And he was able to get the dub with Jahan Dotson putting up a goose egg with, Travis Kelsey, Mahomes out, and then the rest of his team either injured or just not performing well. Um, and you got to expect one of these teams that needs a quarterback to go out and make a move, but I don't know who it would be off the top of my head. Perhaps Sam, but we remains to be seen. He's very comfortable streaming quarterbacks.
He's got Kyler now as well,
It's true.
who's back and had a decent week, so he might be content to sit there. And I don't think it would be a bad play for Bennett either to just sort of keep Dak there, not only as a backup plan, but just like kind of not allowing anyone else to have him. I always find is kind of helpful sometimes. But
It's fair.
Paul Allen versus Baby What Milky, 109 to 89. Al once again squeaks out a win, and it didn't even squeak this one out. Charlie's team did not show up to play this week. He falls to the voodoo yet again. Josh Allen with his, I think, second worst week of the year, only giving 12 points, and then Eckler getting his normal solid 20 points. He gets 21, and then Brandon Ayuk getting his projected at 14, and David Montgomery putting up 17. But the rest of his team really did not get it done at all. D Hop, maybe it was sort of a fluke week 1 with Will Levis being there. This is 2 weeks in a row with Will Levis that he's been pretty poor. I think defenses probably saw some film on Will Levis, has probably figured out how to shut down D Hop, and he hasn't been the same since. And then Jonnu Smith, only a stick. And James Conner coming back from injury, only 7 points. So kind of disappointing. And then for Al, 109, not bad. But Derrick Henry, only 3 points is really, really shocking. And Deontay Johnson only having 2 points is also very shocking. The rest of his team was actually honestly pretty solid outside of a kind of a downer week from Lamar yet again, who continues to kind of struggle to get fantasy points. But the rest of his team put up some solid numbers, and he gets the win, which is most important.
Yes, definitely. And we'll talk about it later. Al made some trades, but he's kind of having hit or miss weeks between his two running backs. Either Rashad White does very good and Derrick Henry does bad, or Henry does great and Rashad White has a bit of a down week. He didn't really address that in that trade, but he addressed receiver. So we'll see how his team goes in the future, and if they can continue to win. He's railed off 8 in a row at this point. So I mean, I'm a strong believer in the Magic, but I'm very anti the Magic, if that makes
Uh,
sense.
Dude, it's getting to be annoying. I was at the beginning, it was fun, but now it's like, someone please stop it. It's
I
gotta
know
stop.
it's outrageous. Diving into our fifth matchup this week, it's mine. I drop one. The Slim Reaper Sleepers couldn't hold it together against the Waiver Wizard. Alex moves up to 4-6 and is now somewhat in playoff contention, and I drop down to 5-5 in sixth place. It was kind of a brutal week. My MVP only put up 6 points against the Niners, which is a tough matchup, but you gotta hope he does more than that. And then Calvin Ridley and Jacoby Myers both with 4 points, a really disappointing matchup. Jacoby Myers had the opportunity to give me a further advantage over Alex with Javonte Williams to play on Monday, and he just couldn't do enough. Javonte Williams ends up putting up 20 points, and I lose by 17. So it didn't matter too much in the end, but it was nice to have hope. And Alex just, slowly climbs back into discussions here. He's made some key trades, taken some risks. He's got CJ Stroud, who just continues to perform well. He should still be around quarterback. He's at quarterback 4 now. So, yeah, even better. And Alex's team actually looks pretty strong. I mean, he has receivers 7 and 8 with Amon Ra and Adam Thielen and Kenneth Walker and Javonte Williams. And he did just make another trade for some running backs. So, his team could theoretically make the playoffs. There's plenty of games left to win. He just has to win them.
Yeah, this is a tough loss for you. 114 is not bad, and we pointed out last week on the pod that ETN was going to be the guy to keep an eye on, and he didn't show up, and it cost you the week, honestly, because if he puts up his projected, you're at least in a very competitive game.
Oh yeah.
But this is obviously a huge win for Alex, and like you said, he's made some trades. I gave him a trade earlier where he got Amon Ra and Jalen Warren from me, and I got Jettas, who immediately got hurt. I think if he's sitting in a situation without Justin Jefferson for so long, I don't think there's any way he's still in a competitive season. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a top 10 receiver since. So I'm fine having Jettas, but it's definitely been kind of painful to watch Amon-Ra St. Brown just have such a good season
Yeah.
after I gave him away pretty early on.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel the same way kind of with the Raheem Mostert, Michael Pittman deal. Michael Pittman is sitting at receiver 11, but Raheem Mostert has just been so strong consistently, and I didn't buy in. I thought he couldn't continue it, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of reeling because of that. But we'll dive into the last matchup here, a record-breaking matchup nonetheless. You go ahead.
Yeah, the FBI versus Riley Reed option, 121. Not a bad week for me. Nothing to write home about, but 48 points from Tal. The new all-time low for the league. I mean, this
Red
is,
alert.
and it wasn't even like the old record was 59 and now it's 48. Like, it was a pretty hard drop off.
An
Uh,
11-point drop. Like,
and his highest score is Dalton Kincaid at a respectable 16. He got the touchdown last night, but I mean, he came into Monday night with like 26 points or something. Like, it was absolutely outrageous how bad this was. Will Levis 4 points, Miles Sanders 3, Roshan 7, Stephon Diggs 6, Rashid Shaheed 7, Dalton Kincaid 16, Michael Thomas 2, Curtis Samuel 2. This is just so bad. I don't even have much to comment on here. And then I mean, on my team, I got just a bunch of guys doing kind of just what they would normally would. Boom week from Mike Evans with 26 points, and a bad week from Marquise Brown with only 4 points. Kind of makes me nervous. Maybe, I mean, it just seemed like Trey McBride was getting peppered by Kyler. Although I do have Trey McBride, so it's not bad. But I was down Cooper Kupp, got the win. I'll take it. I mean, it's tough to lose when your opponent only puts up 48 points.
yeah, I mean, you walked into a win here quite literally. You would have had
Yeah.
to break the record even lower if you were going to lose to Tal, and it's just unfortunate. I mean, Tal does drop to 4-6, the same record as Alex. However, Alex's future is looking a little bit brighter. And there's still opportunity to win games and make the playoffs, but you got to win now. You really can't afford another loss, and if you do, you got to hope that you win a lot of tiebreakers in terms of points.
And I
Um,
don't think the 48-point week is going to help him win very many tiebreakers.
no. So you got to win. But that's it for week 10. And now let's take a look at what we have for week 11. Of course, here at the top, we have Netflix and Hill taking on the Titan CD's Nuts. Eli's mentioned it a couple of times, but Eli has the A team back in, and he is still a 16-point dog. It's pretty crazy. The team Henry's been able to build. I commend him again and again, but it's going to be a tough game. Eli's team is good. Obviously, he's in solo third place, but he's going to need them to play out of their shoes this week. Like I said earlier, Henry's got three top six receivers, a top five running back, a top five quarterback. One of the better teams out there. And I think the key guys to watch for this one are probably going to be CD Lamb against Carolina. Can he continue his dominance? And then really Jamar Chase against Baltimore. Baltimore's defense has been pretty good this year, despite all of the injuries they've had. And then as we look at Eli's team, I think Jahmyr Gibbs against Chicago, he could have an explosive week. They have a pretty bad rush defense. And then Tyreek Hill against Vegas. They're one of the worst teams in the league. He could also explode. And so those four guys, two guys on each team, could be game winners in either direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a ton to add. This could be game of the week here. Obviously, this should be kind of a barn burner. I think CD against Carolina, that's going to be just so brutal for Eli, and Tyreek against Vegas, though, like hopefully can counteract what's going to happen there. But I'm excited to see this, and I'm curious if Saquon's going to have a good week. It's going to be against Washington. They have a terrible defense, so maybe even Saquon factors in. But we'll see. This should be a good one. Yeah, I mean, if Al wins and Henry loses, Henry will fall off the number one spot, which would be quite shocking, even though his points for is so drastically higher.
It would be insane, but we do have to mention Henry does have the least points against by a significant margin as well. So helping him stay at that number one spot. But as we look at matchup 2 here, you want to take this one?
Yeah, 2 5-5 teams. Both guys in playoff contention. 2 5-5 guys. One is in 5th and one is in 8th. So that kind of just shows you where the league is at right now.
Huge spread.
I assume this is the top and the bottom of the 5-5 guys. Is that 4 people? That would probably make sense. But Scary Terry's big toe projected 110. Thomas the Tutu Train projected 122. We've got Sam Howell against a horrible Giants defense. I expect him to have a very solid week. And Jalen Hurts against a solid Kansas City defense. He is Jalen Hurts, but is the Kansas City defense gonna be too stout? There's questions to be asked there, but Devin Singletary in a solid matchup as well. If Dameon Pierce is out, I imagine he's gonna have another great game like he did last week. And then Javonte against Minnesota, not terrible. And then Nico Collins against Arizona should be good as well. And then Pacheco against Philadelphia is a rough matchup. And then, like I just mentioned, Sam Howell against the Giants is going to be great. Christian McCaffrey, who cares? Brian Robinson, fire him up. DK, fire him up. Devontae Adams, fire him up. This should be interesting, honestly, for Noah. He's got some pretty solid matchups. And then Puka with Matthew Stafford expected to play should play a role in this game as well. So, just off the top of my head, looking at matchups, I think Noah, I give a slight edge, obviously. That's what the projection gives him. But both guys desperately needing a win. Wyatt's dropped 2 in a row. I know Noah for sure has dropped at least 1 in a row. But these guys both need a win to stay competitive.
Yeah, and this is one of those matchups that's really going to decide those two guys' playoff hopes. After that week, there will only be weeks 12, 13, and 14 remaining. And so it's really go time. Once you get to 6 losses, I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about Alex and Tal. Once you get to 6 losses, you kind of have to win out if you want to win in the playoff, if you want to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I would say there might be a 1-7-7 team this year just because of how things have shaken down. It's been very even. But of course, 6 losing more than 6, you're definitely not in a good spot. I agree there.
You're hoping.
Yeah.
But as we move into another matchup where somebody else is hoping, tanking for Caleb, the 0-10 Devil takes on Paul Allen, the Voodoo Magician. 8-2 versus 0-10, 12th versus 2nd. It's a battle of the Titans. Obviously, it's a big projection difference right now because Sam's lineup is not fully accurate. However, we'll take a quick peek and see who he might slot in there.
Looks like he's streaming tight end. Oh no, he's got Pitts. Oh, Pitts on a bye, so he's gonna stream a tight end.
He's gonna stream a tight end, and that'll add him maybe 7, 8 points. So he's still going to be a 15-point dog in this one. And Al is trying to keep the voodoo magic rolling. Obviously, Sam has made some interesting trades over the past few hours, picking up both James Conner and Aaron Jones from Charlie, picking up Deebo Samuel from Eli. And then I think the rest of his roster is the same, but he really is trying to break the curse and get his first win in. And Al's team is just going to try and do what they do. Key matchups to watch out for: Rashad White against San Fran, Stephon Diggs against the Jets, AJ Brown against Kansas City. And then as we look at Sam's team, James Conner against Houston, bad defense. Aaron Jones against the Chargers, bad defense. Jalen Waddle against Vegas, bad defense. So this could be somewhat of a shootout between these two teams. I mean, you have Jordan Addison against Denver too, but with Justin Jefferson coming back, we don't know the future there. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and Justin Fields is hopefully coming back, and we'll see what he's capable of doing, how healthy he really is. If he comes back and he's fully firing, it's he's a wild card. You can get very big weeks from him. You can also get complete stinkers. So, knowing Sam's luck, it probably will be a stinker. But he, like you said, he hit some trades and he's changed up his team, and we'll see if maybe he can get that first win that he's been dying for. If he loses this game, though, he would have lost to every single person in the league. This would officially be the end of the cycle.
Yep.
This is the last time before we start replaying our opponents. But next matchup is Tower of London versus the Waiver Wizard. The Waiver Wizard desperately trying to stay in the fight. He's got some juice left in him. He was 0-5? Well, now up to 4-6. So honestly, has really turned the season around pretty significantly. Tower of London sitting at 5-5, currently 7th as the last person in the playoffs if the playoffs were to end today. But he's got Mahomes and Kelsey back. They've got Philly. I've already kind of mentioned the Philly matchup. They'll have to pass the ball a lot, I assume, against a strong Philly run defense. So that should honestly favor Mahomes and Kelsey. They normally figure it out. James Cook against the Jets, I don't think that's going to go very well. And Kareem Hunt is kind of an interesting play, and I still haven't really gotten a read on how he's doing. But I expect Jahan Dotson to bounce back well this week against the Giants. Just a terrible defense. I know he got goosed last week, but I expect him to do well. And it looks like he's running another second tight end in the flex against Carolina. That's a poor defense. That makes sense. I respect that decision. But he's projected 14 points fewer than the Waiver Wizard at 122, which is interesting. Stroud, who's really come along lately. K9 against the Rams should be pretty strong. And Tony Pollard against Carolina should kind of have that bounce back. And, of course, Amon-Ra is always going to do his thing, and Sam Laporta. So I'm excited to see this game. Jalen Warren, really tough matchup against Cleveland, though. Something to watch out for. But I'm excited to see this game. Both guys very much in the playoff race. Very, this could be very tense. And I'm hyped for this game. This should be a good one.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of good matchups the closer we get to the playoffs, and this is one that's kind of like the Wyatt and who was it? The other 5-5 team, Noah?
Wyatt and Noah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Wyatt and Noah matchup where both of these teams kind of need a win. Alex more so a little bit, because if you get to 7 losses, your playoff hopes are really out, which is what I was trying to do to him last week and couldn't. But both teams are really trying to get a win here to keep their playoff hopes alive. And as we look at another team or a matchup, I guess, where both people are kind of at the end of their playoff hopes, Riley Reed option taking on Baby Want Milky, 4-6 taking on the 3-7 team. Charlie's currently projected 15 points higher. He also has made some trades recently, and he's changed his roster a little bit. Currently starting Antonio Gibson in running back 2, but he's got David Montgomery in the flex. And then his wide receivers, he upgraded a little bit with Christian Kirk. He did lose Brandon Ayuk, though, and then he got a tight end, Dalton Schultz, back, who he originally dropped to waivers, and then Eli picked up and then traded him back to Charlie. So interesting maneuvers here happening from the Baby Want Milky camp. But, there's a reason why he's 3-7.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny he's returned to the original name. He changed the name a couple times along the way, but Tao is still in the race at 4-6. He had some guys on bye. I mean, it's really tough coming back from that 48-point week, though. He's definitely going to need a bounce back. He's got Tua back, and Josh Allen against the Jets. He did terrible against them in week 1, so maybe there's some potential for a swing in the in the Riley Reid option direction. But Charlie definitely desperately needs to win if he has any chance. And I would honestly say the same for Tao here.
Yeah, I agree. It's a must-win game for both teams, and the nod is currently to Charlie, but we'll see if that stays the same. I mean, 4-7 isn't much better, but if he could rail off wins through the rest of the year, maybe he's that 7-7 team that makes it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get to the last matchup of the week, this faded dog heartless matchup. It's the podcast grudge match. The deputy versus the commish. You versus me. Currently, you're projected 6 points higher. And we've both, actually, you haven't been involved in a trade today. So maybe I've got a little
I've
bit of
not.
karma on my side there for keeping the league going. But I'm 5-5. I need to win here. You're 6-4. I mean, theoretically, you can afford a loss, but you really don't want to. You want to get to 7-4 and kind of get that security of having 3 games above 500. I have to try and get back above 500. I've been keeping my head above water through all the dangers and the injuries that I've faced. I've got a new quarterback in there. I've got a new running back in there. I've got a new wide receiver in there. There's a lot of guys, a lot of moving parts, and I'm going to need my team to play well.
Yeah, this is a kind of a new squad that you're throwing out there against me. I'm throwing out my normal guys. I am down Jonathan Taylor this week. I don't know if you have. Do you have any big guys on bye? Any
Yeah, I
key
have
players?
Ramondre and Michael Pittman. So wide
Okay.
receiver 10 and running back 14.
Okay, yeah, I've got Jonathan Taylor on bye. That's my only player really, and then I've got Justin Jefferson, who is still on the IR just in case, but he's possibly returning. But that doesn't really help fill the RB2 void that I've got. So I have zero RB depth. Been an issue all season, but it'd be kind of nice to have him back for this game. I mean, just be nice to have him back in general. But as you kind of said, this game is a little bit bigger for you than it is for me. Of course, I do want to win. Obviously, you can kind of just start to solidify myself in the playoff picture. Because falling to 6-5 is not bad, but definitely 7-4 would be feeling very good about it. But this should be good. We waited all year for this. It's week 11. We're finally getting the pod showdown, and I'm excited for it. It should be a fun one. I've got a couple guys going on Thursday night too, sort of kick us off with Joe Burrow and Mark Andrews. So
Okay, okay.
we'll got some excitement early in the week. And yeah, I mean, I don't love my matchups though, to be honest. They're not. None of them are really all that strong. But
I
we'll
think
see. We'll see how it goes.
I think I have some decent matchups, and I'm gonna need my guys to play well. Obviously, I'm a 6 point dog, but only time will tell. So now, as we move in here, I'll stop streaming, and we can check the trades on our phones because recent activity doesn't work on the app. But there were a lot of big ones made. I mean, if we can go back to the earliest one a while ago. Obviously, I trade.
Are we doing most recent or the
No, we'll,
oldest?
we'll go back to the oldest.
Okay.
So obviously I trade Will Levis. I pick up Devon Achan. It was a big trade for me. There's been a lot of rumblings in the chat about it. I don't think it needs to be discussed much more. We'll see how Achan is. If he gets injured again and he's done for the season, I want to hear a lot of apologies. Okay. Um, Next trade that happened was JSN and Kenneth Walker to Alex for Jake Ferguson, James Cook, and Jahan Dotson. Bennett really trying to diversify his assets, build up his team in a couple of key areas, tight end while Travis Kelce's out, and then running back and wide receiver to fill some of those voids he has. And we'll
Yeah,
see.
this was that. I think it's important to note that this was last week that this one was done. So
Oh,
he
this
needed,
was,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, because he needed Jake Ferguson since Kelsey was on a bye. But
yeah. It worked out for him this week. I mean, he got the dub and moved up, but we'll see how it works out in the long term. After that, we have Kyron Williams moving to Wyatt for Josh Dobbs and Cortland Sutton. I needed to kind of get another quarterback in there. I have Baker Mayfield, who's an all right option, but I'd rather have Josh Dobbs and get the Hawk stack back. Beyond that, I was okay moving Kyron Williams. He won't be back till week 12, and I'm kind of in a win now mode. So I need to get as many points on the field as I can.
yeah, it is interesting because I think Wyatt's in kind of win now mode as well. Clearly looking more towards the playoffs though with the Kyron move. Because like you said, he's not back till week 12. Because they just come off a bye. He's got one week in the IR. Yeah. And I'm also just curious how Kyron's going to be with Cup back. We noticed his target rate went down when Cup returned. He was still getting some touchdowns, so the touchdown upside is there. And when this trade was made, I was still also a little bit curious if Stafford was going to be playing this week, but it seems like he's training up this week since this was done yesterday, but it's been in like a big 24 hours for Stafford. So if Stafford's playing, though, I think Kyron Stocks should still be pretty solid.
And
But
now,
for a moment, I was a little bit worried just what would happen without Stafford. But yeah.
yeah, and that's totally understandable with a backup quarterback. But we'll see how Kyron Williams plays out for Wyatt when he comes back next week. And moving into all the trades that happened today, we have Stephon Diggs moving to Paul Allen's team. And in return, Tal gets Amari Cooper and Tank Dell. Similar situation, kind of diversifying, picks up the young rookie who's been pretty successful, Tank Dell, this season. And then Amari Cooper, who's been disappointing when Deshaun Watson doesn't play, but he's been pretty consistent when he does. So interesting move there by Tal, trying to diversify and upgrade in a couple of key areas rather than having one explosive receiver. Um,
Yeah, I think this is good for Tal. He had obviously the star in Diggs, but he was definitely lacking a bunch of pieces, and this kind of just gives him an extra piece. I think it's solid for him.
yeah. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, Debo for Joe Mixon straight up. I don't really have much to say here. I guess I'm just assuming both guys were kind of just needing help at that position. I don't really value one guy more than the other. Just different position preferences. So I think that's all that this really was. Yeah, that was Sam and Eli. And then Charlie and Sam, another trade for Sam. Sam acquires Aaron Jones and James Conner. Charlie acquires Logan Thomas and Bijan. Bijan's on a bye this week. Charlie kind of does need to win now, though, so it's a little bit interesting that he's acquiring a guy who's going on to a bye. I know he needed help in the tight end slot as he had. I think he also later just traded Logan Thomas again, so this isn't even like completely updated. But I think Aaron Jones and James Conner should be some pretty solid pieces for Sam, who's finally getting some RB depth and had to get rid of Bijan if he wants to win this week.
Yeah, I agree. Sam's really just trying to end the losing streak, and Charlie's trying to build a bit of a team in hopes that he wins this week and then can keep it rolling with Bijan back off by. And then the next second to last trade, Scary Terry's big toe. He gets Javonte Williams and Isaiah Pacheco, and he gives Alex Tony Pollard and Gabe Davis. A bit of an interesting one. Wyatt acquires two running backs. He wanted to upgrade in a couple of areas, wasn't happy with how Tony Pollard was performing. And Alex is taking a chance on two guys who have kind of underperformed this season. Obviously, Gabe Davis with the big goose egg last week and then only 9 points this week. So we're going to see. I mean, Alex is taking some chances. He's trying to win where it counts and get himself back in the playoff picture.
Yeah, the final one. We're running out of time here, so I'll be quick here, but it's between Charlie and Eli. Charlie acquires Dalton Schultz and Christian Kirk. Eli acquires Brandon Ayuk and Logan Thomas. Slight wide receiver downgrade for a slight wide receiver upgrade. Solid trade. Nothing really to talk about there. We've got 6 minutes left here and a couple more points we wanna get into. Should we take a peek at like the playoff bracket that's on the app, maybe?
Yeah, we can take a look. And we'll just talk it through. I mean, currently Henry is in the first spot and projected to get that week or round one bye. Al's going to try and knock him off so he doesn't have to play Bennett in week one. Currently, I am in the playoffs in sixth place, playing Eli, and currently Wyatt is playing you, the 5 and the 4 seed. And then as we look at the loser bracket, Sam has the bye currently, obviously at 0-10, so that's going to be tough for him. And then we have Charlie facing off against Tal and Noah facing off against Alex. Obviously, a lot of these teams, specifically Alex, Tal, and Noah in the losers bracket, they could easily jump up into the playoffs. And a couple of the teams up there, like Wyatt, I guess technically you, although I think your team's pretty strong, and then Bennett and me could lose a couple of games and drop down. So there's a lot that can happen, but it's interesting to see the teams that have the buys right now and the matchups that we currently have. I'm not really happy having Eli round one of the playoffs. I think he's got a strong roster, and I'd much rather go against somebody like Bennett or Wyatt.
Yeah, it is tough because I mean, there's so many of these 5-5 guys. So I mean, obviously nothing's set in stone, and like you said, it's also hard, I think, to get a quality matchup in the first round of the playoffs. Most of the teams you're going to run into are going to be solid, especially if you're squeaking in as like a lower seed. You're kind of just ripped from the beginning. Even if you get in at the 7th seed, you immediately got to go against the 2 seed, who'd currently be Al, who hasn't lost in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited here down the stretch. We're in the witching hour, I think. There's what 4 weeks left, and um, I think it's pretty obvious who's in contention, and a lot of close fights. So this should be really fun down the stretch here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it shapes out, and I'm just hoping that it shapes out well for me. Um, and then we'll go back into our talking points now. Obviously, Henry's roster, I mentioned it a couple of times, his top tier receivers. His roster just keeps looking dominant. He keeps dropping high scores. This is his third time dropping the weekly high score, and he looks like the strongest team by far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that at this point. This is kind of looking like what Bennett looked like last year, and Bennett ended up running the board last year, and it was like very predictable all along. Obviously, that may not be the same for Henry, of course, but it's clear who the favorite is. But it only takes 1 week, man. It only takes one bad week or one really good week from someone to take him down. So, he's got to keep himself on his toes and be prepared, and keep putting out his best roster each week. But Al wins again, 8 in a row. It's kind of crazy. It's getting crazy at this point. Charlie had a really bad week against him with only 89 points, so he kind of got a pretty easy win. And he's facing Sam this week, who obviously is looking for his first win. And he made some trades today that trying to turn the team around, really trying to steal a win from Al here. And I think everyone would kind of like to see Al fall.
Oh
Also, if
yeah.
Al falls, it kind of opens up the playoff board a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
No, I don't think anyone's really expecting Henry to fall off, but because of Al's points for, I have the tiebreaker over him. Like, if I were to win this week and he loses, it's like I'm really right there to catch
Mm-hmm.
him. So, it could get pretty close here. If he starts to drop a couple games here down the stretch. I mean, he's currently sitting nice and high at 2, but a couple losses, he could easily fall to the 5 or so.
Yeah, and anything can happen. Like you said, his points for is nothing to write home about, and his points against, he's been getting pretty lucky as well. So, talking about somebody who hasn't been getting lucky, but in the past few weeks, they've turned it around. Alex, he's climbing back into contention. We mentioned it earlier. He's been 4-1 in the last 5 weeks. He got the win over me. He keeps himself alive, and he's really looking to make a push now. Like we said, he took a couple of risky trades, acquiring some guys who had been underperforming, maybe at a discounted value, and he's going to try and get in that playoff picture one way or another.
Yeah, he's really come a long way, from 0-5 to 4-6. That's pretty incredible, honestly, the turnaround he's had. And then Tal breaking the league low scoring record, had to bring it up twice. I know it's been mentioned several times, even over text, but 48 points. I don't even know if that's ever going to get broken again, quite honestly. That's honestly very difficult to do.
That'll have to go on the trophy this year. That'll have to be engraved. Year broken, low score.
Dude, it's so bad.
Next point, Eli. He got the .9 victory. We talked about it already. He holds on against Davante Adams in the clutch. That was the Davante Adams revenge trade right there. Obviously, if the trade hadn't happened and everything stayed the same, Noah would have won because Christian Watson put up some points and Jahmyr Gibbs put up 26 points. So clearly, Eli won that trade. But we'll see if Noah can use Davante Adams going forward to try and help him make the playoffs. And as we
Yeah.
talk about our last point here, Sam, he keeps losing. He's 0-10. He's going to try and get a dub this week. You got anything to say?
No, I mean, maybe there will be a little Eli Noah revenge game in the playoffs, and maybe things will pan out differently. Maybe in the end, Noah does win. There's another little fun thing to watch for, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, best of luck to everyone this week. Week 11, stay strong. We're near the end. Trade deadline coming up soon, and best of luck, everyone.
Good luck, fellas.
Good luck against me, Gabe, this week.